Hello guys, welcome back to Writer's Tales The Last Adventure. It's the number 44. This is Digital Tenderness. So we're in Liverpool, 2001. Quite an interesting one because it's more of a character piece, this is, very much. We focus on a guy called Archie Minlow, who is a Down syndrome teenager who's very extremely disillusioned with his life, really. Quite invisible to the world. He just lives in his own little bubble, really, to be honest. Where he's overbearing mother and he's sort of distant, father. He's quite distant, just like, doesn't really care much, really. And you just feel like he's in this, it's like in a barren land, really. Just like of nothingness in his life, really. Nothing excites him. He just lives the daily life, really, and just feels out of touch. He seems to be very out of touch these days, really. That's until when he finds a bin bag in an alleyway, inside containing a computer, which he always wanted a computer, but he never had. He sneaks it home, then starts rebuilding it. He sort of puts it together, then it suddenly comes to life. While it's on, it speaks to him in a female voice, and she calls herself Sienna. Sienna is a powerful supercomputer, that had been dumped in the alleyway, and obviously Archie's rebuilded her and wants him to rebuild, make it a bit more stronger, getting different bits and pieces, electronic bits and pieces, to just reassemble her, really. And in return, she can take him off out of this world. He wants to be free, escape reality, go somewhere like he prefers to be, really. And she offers him that, unless you get me the bits and pieces, really. But also kill anyone who stands in your way as well. So in actual fact, he does her bidding, and he ends up stealing, looting a few bits and pieces, ends up killing people in the process with a knife. So it goes on a stabbing spree around Liverpool, and tries to rebuild this computer, really. Obviously leads in a way. He ends up becoming a mass murderer, a bit of a serial killer in the process, really, just because he's been told to get these bits and pieces, kill anyone who stands in your way. That's just in his logic, really. He just does it, really. He's done what he's told. He's led to believe that he is going to be free, but he has to pay a price as well. That's what he does. Meanwhile, the protagonists are doing their own VHS looting, of course, through Walrus, of course. They're basically just getting rid of all stuff, which I haven't really mentioned properly now and again, really. But, it happens in quite a number of stories, really. So they basically raid Walrus, get rid of the VHS, of course, which is the ongoing story arc. One of them, actually. There's quite a lot of story arcs going on. They'll get there eventually with some of the other ones. Of course, they span over different stories, they do. So they basically get rid of them. They also end up meeting a guy called Eddie McFadden, who is a bit of a con man, really. Lovable, roguish con man. Asking for a quick buck or something like that. Sort of Arthur Daly character who looks like Craig Charles. And he sort of gets mangled with them, of course. He ends up joining them, like, you think, yeah, it's interesting. I can flog these VHSs. They're like, no. These are going to be burned. The bad copies, they say the parity of bad copies, like, if you play them, it's just static, they're broken copies. So they end up getting rid of them, dumping in the water, burning them, that sort of thing. And they sort of get wind on, they sort of come in contact with some weird murder investigation as well, with everyone, a lot of electricians, electronic stores, staff have been stabbed to death, really, and also just get, sort of, again, down to the bottom of it, really, in a way. Coming across Archie as well, who's harbouring his secret. Of course, he has this computer named Sienna in his bedroom, and plans to, just rebuild it, of course. They actually find out about it, of course, because Archie ends up getting paranoid, of course, and he ends up, for people who probably know, it's like, again, harbouring secrets, of course, he sort of gets a bit tetchy, and just kills the people he sort of knows without them finding out what he's actually doing. You know, kills a couple of people he's met over his life, really. People he's met like in a couple like social youth clubs or whatever, and just people he's met in general over the years. Ends up being stabbed in the street, in a back alley or whatever. So like semi tortures them, just like that, really. But they actually find out, go into his room. She's rebuilt, but they do. But one thing that you bring along is a what do you call it? Like a computer stabilizer or a virus or whatever. I think like a semi-virus that Florence actually made. It's like they find about, and she finds out our readings of the activity, bit out. So she creates this something like, I think what you call like a little magnet, something like it's like something for computers that it's like if you put a magnet to something, it actually ruins it, really. Something like that, really. But it's all stable. It makes it a bit more rigid and unstable, really. But in the process, actually, she kills Archie. Shockingly, just basically zaps him or whatever, and just basically, But in actual fact, she'd have stunned him. People thought, it's like a little twist. Like, is he got zapped in the eyes, but actually got stunned. He did. He didn't die, really. Then afterwards, she just blows up, like I said, she just goes like that, really. Not a heavy explosion, just like a computer explosion, really. Like the screen just explodes and she's gone. And she gets disposed of, she gets crushed and it feels like never to be used again. Archie awakes, of course, and basically understands what he's done, of course. He sort of returns to his mistakes, like he really comes to terms with what has happened. Of course, he's been used. And obviously, they basically think it's like, one of those, it's just one of those things, really, just be wary of people, of course. That sort of thing. Indeed. After the protagonists leave, of course, sadly, Archie commits suicide. He hangs himself in his room. Unfortunately. And that's it. Because he couldn't bear his burden, because he's wrapped with guilt of what he's done. It sort of comes back to him, doesn't he? He just basically hangs himself in his room. There you go. Right, so this is quite an interesting one. So digital tenderness. So this subject matter on this one, there's always some subject matter with bits and pieces, with some stories, of course, like with Crucifixion Squad, of course, that deals with some religious stuff, of course. High power, everything else. Pinocchio virus, psychic powers, and everything like that. This deals with learning disabilities, actually, to be honest. Basically, people who are basically easily led. Because I know quite a few people actually who have been, who have learning disabilities have been easily led and lead to bad lives, really. It's like they're sort of on their own, really, and they're sort of like quite vulnerable, and they lead to, just like dangerous stuff. Really. Like they always get in trouble. There's always so many reasons why, of course, with a few certain people. Even due to bad parenting. Mainly down to parents, of course, and upbringing. That's sort of one thing, really, and it's just like lack of whatever, really. There's always a lack of something with them, unfortunately. So that's basically what the matter is, really. Obviously with Archie, because he's always overbearing mother who's very protective of him. His dad doesn't really care much, really, in a way, and he just feels just like, he's just been ousted, like he's just the sort of ginger stepchild person, really. Even though he's an only child, he's basically just like, he's awkward, he's got Down syndrome, really, in a way, Down syndrome as well, but can be easily led, of course. In this case, of course, with Sienna, absolutely. So he's, that leads in trouble. He, it gets in trouble with the law. He actually ends up killing quite a few people. But in the end, it sort of gets covered up, really, because no one really knows who murdered who, really, But he ends up killing himself in the end, really, because he can't face the facts. He can't really face the music anymore, because people probably know. He will, they'll probably know that he's murdered those people, of course, and that guilt will carry him strongly, of course, to make him depressed and everything else, and that led him finally to hang himself in the end. and that's how it is really. Obviously Liverpool, I've always think about saying a story in Liverpool is pretty interesting. Saying 2001, bit of a homage to the 51st state, of course. Craig Charles is, Scouse, of course, so obviously I like Craig Charles. I think he's a good actor. Red Dwarf is pretty good, really good show. So I thought, stuff like him have a bit of an interesting comic foil, of course. Serious but also funny as well. That's where we go with that one. Nothing else to say on this one, unfortunately. I've done everything else really, of course, and yeah, okay. Thank you guys for watching. See you for the next video. See you later.